You are on the clock with the 110 in your rookie draft, and your choice is Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars versus Ladd McConkey of the Los Angeles Chargers. Who is the receiver for you? Stay tuned to the Fantasy Football Universe to find out. Does anything get you guys more pumped to do a show than trading up to get Jordan Travis right before the show starts? What else can get you more hyped than that? Yes.
Trade up for Ray Davis, baby. Let's go.
Yes. Traded up for Jordan Travis in the 4th round to secure my backup quarterback because I punted QB and I am now starting Aaron fucking Rodgers, who I didn't like when he was good, but I hate the Packers. So fuck Aaron.
Comeback time, baby. Comeback city for Rodgers. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a Kardashian joke about Rodgers and comebacks there, but we'll move on. So we're on the clock here at the 110. Your decision is Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey. Well, we're going to get into that in a second. If you want to check out the full write-up on this, head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Check us out pretty much anywhere on social media at the ffuniverse.com or FF Universe on just regular social media. Like, review, rate, reply, all that fun crap. Send us some of your rosters. I think we're doing some roster audits still, trade debates and stuff like that. We've got an AMA coming up on Reddit, the Wild Wild West over there on the 30th. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me at FF Mad Scientist. Joined today by Jeremy Schulman at FF_Rebel and Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05. Like I said, today we've got Brian Thomas Jr. versus Ladd McConkey. This should be a fun one. Do you guys have a lot? I feel like Jeremy has a whole ton of Ladd McConkey, and I don't think either of us have anyone else. You guys talk. I'll be right back.
Yeah, well, I just want to address this slander here. I don't have a whole ton of either of these guys. I think I have 1 or 2 Ladd McConkey shares. I have 0 Brian Thomas Jr. shares. I don't want to even talk about him until the beginning of round 2, and he's going 110, 111, 112. So I'm all out on Brian Thomas Jr. at cost and his 17 touchdowns from Heisman winning quarterback Jaden Daniels last year.
Man, that Calvin Ridley PTSD must be hitting hard for you, Jeremy. Yeah,
You're
so
damn right.
this is what Jacksonville's been trying to do for years. Find that prototypical X wide receiver on the outside who can win deep and win down the field. What they do, they get Gabe Davis. He's just going to be a guy that's running the 9 routes, not doing anything.
Yep.
The interesting thing, I think the difference between these 2 wide receivers is the roles they fill. Ladd McConkey's going to play the slot flanker, be kind of a stretch, so he's going to be like a Hollywood Brown in Chargers offense. Brian Thomas Jr. is playing the prototypical X. So he could be the one on that team. I know we like Christian Kirk. I know people like Evan Ingram. Brian Thomas Jr. is just a better prospect than those guys, and he has the ability to be the one there. I think he gives Trevor Lawrence his best shot at finding that X. So I get the case for both of these guys, and I always, when I'm deciding between the 2 guys who has a better long-term ceiling, I think it's Brian Thomas Jr., but he is riskier. So there's a high risk, high reward. And yeah, if you need help, right there. That'll probably be me in a couple years when I'm still vouching for Brian Thomas Jr. and he hasn't broken out.
Spoiler alert, it's a direct line to Jeremy's house, just so you know.
Get bet. Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty interesting discussion between these 2 guys because you could go both ways.
Hang on, I didn't know we needed to bring props. I'll be right back.
Oh, he's getting props.
I hope he has a Calvin Ridley just picked.
How many times have I told him no dildos on air? Like for the last time, Jeremy. Do I ask what he's bringing, or do we just get into it here?
I guess we'll just see what happens. Who knows? It's a mystery.
I don't like mysteries. Mysteries don't work. Mysteries haven't ended well for me in the past.
Oh, so funny. But like my whole thing with Brian Thomas Jr. is he has the higher ceiling, and that's why I'm going to chase it at the 110. Because like we look at their expected receiving yardage output that just dropped. They're both at 775 yards. Both guys' receiving yards total is the exact same. And Ladd McConkey supposedly has a much better situation, right? So that should tell you kind of how the props people in Vegas are leaning between these 2 guys. They think even though Brian Thomas Jr.'s situation is not as good, supposedly, he's still expected to produce similar to Ladd McConkey. So I'm going to take the guy I think has a higher ceiling and a higher range of outcomes than him. So that's why I'm going Brian Thomas.
I think we're just jumping on this year's slot receiver like we do every year after Cooper Kupp, and McConkey's getting overhyped. But I guess we can get into it. I dare I ask what prop you've brought with you?
Oh, we're good. We'll see if it makes an appearance later on.
Oh, this is terrifying.
It's really not that exciting, to be fair.
All right, let's get into it. For the player comps, I have Brian Thomas Jr. closest to that of Green Bay Packers receiver Christian Watson. Ladd McConkey, on the other hand, I think this was kind of a lazy comp, but in the end, it was every time I did it, I was like, oh, that's a lazy comp. I can't do this. And then I redid it, and it was the same fucking comp. Every single time I ran through, I'm like, nope, it's Hunter Renfrow. So we have Christian Watson versus Hunter Renfrow, which should tell you how many shares of these two I have. Absolutely zero, because I think they're both overrated. What were the comps for you guys? Obviously, I assume it's not Christian Watson or Hunter Renfrow.
No, I mean, well, for Ladd McConkey, my comp is Julian Edelman. I mean, Wes Welker. I mean, Cooper Kupp. I mean,
Mr. Patriots slot receiver
Adam
here.
Humphries. It's an Adam Humphries sighting on the double FU. No, listen, Ladd McConkey, right? We got guys here that are going in the same range, but they play completely different styles, and they should be utilized completely different. I saw somebody on Twitter say the other day, why does everybody keep saying that Ladd McConkey is a slot receiver? He didn't play slot in college. They use Bowers in the slot.
He went in the NFL.
But that's the thing, right? Is like we look at the size of these guys, we look at their skill set. And if the Chargers aren't slotting Ladd McConkey, in the middle of the field to run that position, then, I think the Chargers have bigger problems than Jim Harbaugh's desire to run the football with ex-Baltimore Ravens and a 5th round draft pick or 6th round draft pick at this point. So, yeah. But Ladd McConkey, the comp, Hunter Renfrow comp, really? Jesse, are we doing this?
No, I'm not doing Hunter Renfrow. He's way more explosive than Hunter Renfrow. If we take away the skin tone, he's much closer to like a Deontay Johnson, or if we want to go back a few years, a Doug Baldwin, who was more of a slot player. The whole issue with Ladd McConkey is he sucks against press coverage. So if he gets pressed in the line of scrimmage, this is why he's not going to play the X role, because he has some of the worst numbers in the class against press coverage. So if you put him at the slot or the flanker role, it puts him off the line of scrimmage. It gives him that free releases, and that's how he's really effective. So I think that's why he's going to transition more to a slot flanker. He can play outside, but you really don't want him on the line of scrimmage because he'll get bodied and it disrupts his routes. But overall, yeah, I think he's actually a really good technician and a route runner. So that's why I like Deontay Johnson or Doug Baldwin, if anybody remembers Doug Baldwin, who was a very good route runner back for the Seahawks back in the day. Those guys come to mind as that type of player who can earn targets and be. But we see kind of with both those guys, the ceiling might not be there, even though Deontay Johnson's been a massive target earner. His ceiling still has not hit yet. Like, we're still waiting on that. So it could be similar to Ladd McConkey, where he's like, wide receiver 30, give or take each year, which is solid fantasy. I just don't know if the true upside is, a top 12 wide receiver.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is if BTJ is in fact Christian Watson, then I'm taking Ladd McConkey 11 out of 10 times, because Christian Watson just hasn't put it together, hasn't stayed healthy. And Brian Thomas Jr., there's some concern in his tape. He's taken plays off. He's, the 17 touchdowns is nice, but also getting them from the Heisman winning quarterback is, I guess, to be expected. So we'll have to see what he can do at the next level here, especially with way more target competition. You mentioned it earlier, Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram are they better talent-wise, physically than Brian Thomas Jr.? No. Are they able to, command more targets in a Doug Peterson offense being thrown the football by Trevor Lawrence, who seems to value comfort over big explosive plays? I think maybe. So, yeah, we'll see. If he's Christian Watson, then he's just stretching the field in this offense, and he does not have Jordan Love throwing him the football.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to read
I love some Christian Watson. That's my dude right there. So, of course, I like Brian Thomas Jr.
I'm going to read the Bleacher Report, like the scouting report here on Ladd McConkey, and you tell me if you agree with it. Has strong hands despite relatively small size, does a great job securing the ball, productive in all areas of the field in college, able to use his football IQ to separate from the defensive backs, willing to put his body in harm's way to make great catches. Those were his strengths. Weaknesses: will be limited to playing the slots in the NFL, and underneath routes will hurt his that was pre-draft, obviously. We'll ignore that. Won't create much after the catch, and more quick than fast, and doesn't present as a elite vertical threat. Would you agree that that's a pretty accurate scouting report for him?
I'd say it's fair, but there's a lot of shades of whiteness built into this, the way they're talking about him, right?
Yeah, because it's a scouting report for Hunter Renfrow.
He's more explosive. Like that's the kind of the thing that we'll get into.
Yeah.
Like he can stretch the field from a slot. Hunter Renfrow ain't stretching shit from the slot. Hunter Renfrow's going 5 yards, sitting down, he's running out routes. Ladd McConkey does run some of the best out routes in the class, but like he pushes downfield, so he's more of a vertical slot, like a vertical hybrid type player who can actually stretch it and give you explosive plays. Like he was competing with Bowers, kind of similar role, and he almost led that team in explosive plays last year, like even though he had a limited role with the team. So I think he's a very good wide receiver. I just don't know. If we watch his ceiling, that's my whole issue with him. I think the floor is higher with him. I just don't think the ceiling is necessarily there because of what he's going to be asked to do.
Yeah, and you wonder too about the usage of Ladd McConkey. I think that's the big issue there. Brock Bowers was just better than Ladd McConkey at what Ladd McConkey could have been asked to do, but at the same time, Georgia wasn't exactly didn't have a bevy of outside wide receivers either. So I think they were kind of pigeonholed him into maybe something that didn't necessarily work for his skill set, but worked for the team. Ladd's good enough to make it work anyway. And at the next level against stiffer competition, he's absolutely going to be in the slot role. So these guys are going to be looking to play much different roles in the NFL. So we're just going to have to talk through it and see who's going to be better at what.
All right, let's get into the size comparison here. Brian Thomas Jr. weighed in at 6'3" and 209 pounds. Well, Hunter Renfrow checked in at 6 feet. Ladd McConkey checked in at 6 feet and 186 pounds. What are your thoughts there? Obviously, you said the difference in height and weight is going to mean one projects to be a potential X and one is likely a big slot receiver or an average size slot receiver, which is why I like Brian Thomas Jr. more, words I never thought I would say, especially for a Jaguars receiver. But I just think he has the higher upside with the potential role. And you know what the scary part is? Calvin's gone. BTJ is their new receiver. This had me looking the other day and going, I might be in on Gabe Davis this year.
Well, welcome to the club, baby. Welcome. I posted that when he signed with Jacksonville. I was like, I like it. And people are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, listen, I'm not saying I'm starting him, but I like the fit. It's all I'm saying.
Thoughts on size?
Yeah. I'm not entertaining that at all from Jesse. But
you're not entertaining, we agree.
Well, Brian Thomas Jr., right? Obviously much bigger. Like Jesse was saying, you play the X much easier. He also ran a 4.33. He was 57th out of 3,500 receivers ever tested in terms of his raw athletic score, or relative athletic score. So listen, he's just a freak athlete. We're not talking about that when we're talking Ladd McConkey. He's more of a technician. He's athletic enough, certainly, and able to get in and out of his breaks. But you're talking about more of an athletic player versus more of a cerebral player. But size matters when you're talking about that athleticism. So yeah, give me what's his name, Brian Thomas Jr. It's the only time I'm going to vote for him in this entire discussion.
When you say McConkey projects to be more of a technician, do you mean like cable or plumbing?
He'll make
sure. You think he's going to make it in the NFL? Sorry. I thought he was going to be a plumber for the rest of his life.
We'll make sure he takes care of your perpetually clogged toilets, Aaron. Don't worry about it. We'll get him right over.
Yeah, like it's not like the one thing with Ladd that's weird is he was a really good athlete. What he tested at the combine was fantastic. He put up an 8.8 RAS score. People like joke about it. I'm like, he's just not Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. is the freak of all freaks of the position. It's just a different type of player. But Ladd McConkey is plenty athletic to play the position. Like I think we throw out the comps of like these slot short guys, like Edelman and like Hunter Renfrow. Those guys cannot do what why am I blanking? I was saying Ladd McConkey could do. Like I think he's more athletic than those guys, and just gives you more upside from that. So, but then you take it to a whole nother level. Brian Thomas Jr. It's like the Martavis Bryant, the George Pickens of the world. Like that's just a different type of human playing the X wide receiver position. So yeah, you like that's.
How about that? You forgot what his name was. It's like you jumped in a time machine and went ahead 2 years when you don't know what his name is. Because he won't be in the NFL. Speed comparison. We'll move on. Brian Thomas Jr. ran a 4.33. Ladd McConkey a 4.39. Both fast. I suppose Brian Thomas Jr. needs the elite speed a little bit more with the possible deep threat here. Although, having said that, probably doesn't hurt to be a fast slot receiver either. I think they're both really, really fast. It's probably a tie here. I don't really have a winner. By by the numbers, it's BTJ, but they're both really fast. Although I should clarify that they're both really fast because I got shit on the other day because I said, oh, I don't think that Ladd McConkey's that fast. And someone pointed out that he ran a 4.39. And I said that, didn't realize he was that fast. So he's fast. He's just not any good.
He's fast and he's elite in the 3-cone and the shuttle. I mean, the guy can move. You see it on tape as well. I mean, he's cutting. So the acceleration you love. He doesn't necessarily have the long speed that I think Brian Thomas Jr. does, just because he's a fucking gazelle out there. But they're both plenty fast. Like Jesse was saying before, it's not that Ladd isn't athletic. It's just we're comparing him to Brian Thomas Jr. So
it's not fair.
He's going to be awesome in my point per 3-cone drill.
One of these guys you build in a lab. It's Brian Thomas Jr. He's the guy you build on Madden. Like all the 6'4", 210 wide receiver that can go insanely fast. Yeah. Ladd McConkey, he's fast. Okay. But no.
The problem is when you kind of escalate all of those, 99 speed, 99 acceleration, you don't have enough left for hands, and you worry a little bit about how he's going to catch everything that's thrown in his direction. So.
Yeah.
Is this like, who was it? Was it Jalen Wright with the Helen Keller? Is this going to be BTJ? Tom to Edward Scissorhands?
Not that bad.
No, not with 17 touchdowns. It won't be, but there were a few free runners, that's for sure.
All right. Route running. This one's tight for me. Thomas is superior to McConkey on deep routes. Obviously, I think they play different styles. His speed and his size allow him to be great downfield and excel on contested catches. McConkey, on the other hand, far superior route runner for me in both the short and intermediate areas. As much as it pains me to say it, I gave the overall win to McConkey. Having said that, I think the higher upside is with Brian Thomas Jr.'s role because it's more explosive, whereas I guess the new NFL, that's not necessarily true because I don't believe Cooper Kupp finished as the wide receiver 1 on deep balls. It was all catch and run shit. So this one's a mix for me, but it went to Ladd McConkey. He was better in the short and intermediate as opposed to Brian Thomas Jr., who was a better deep threat for route running, that is. Same with hands, I guess. But this was route running and hands. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Ladd's the more polished, overall wide receiver. Yeah. But Brian Thomas Jr. is the best deep threat in this class. He does things differently than almost anybody. It's because you get the size, speed, and he's actually good at running those 9 routes. That's something he specializes in. So now I guess Trevor Lawrence, who could throw a decent deep ball, and it should work out well. Ladd makes your quarterback's life a lot easier because he wins the intermediate underneath, does a lot of that stuff really well. But I think the upside, I love upside always in fantasy football. So of course I believe Brian Thomas Jr. But if we're going on just on route running and stuff like this, it's Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, it's McConkey by a lot. Nothing else to add here. Just write it in magic marker.
All right, moving on. College production. Let's see. Brian, this one was where I lost faith in both of them. Because if you look, Brian Thomas Jr. had 3 seasons. Only one of them was even decent production. Had only 1 season of solid production, but that season saw him put up 68 catches, 1,177 yards, and 17 touchdowns. McConkey, on the other hand, failed to put up an elite season whatsoever in 3 years of Georgia. Top season being 58 catches, 762 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. I would like to note that of his 3 seasons, all 3 were worse than Brock Bowers. Not great. So when you're losing, I get it. Brock Bowers was awesome, but he wasn't elite, not at any point. Whereas at least Brian Thomas Jr. had 1 elite season there. The 17 touchdowns is awesome. I think overall, Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not a huge fan of, but I think there's wide receiver 2 in the NFL potential. Ladd McConkey, I think this is Hunter Renfrow. I'm sorry. I'm not quitting. I know it's lazy, but every time I say something, it comes back to I think he's Hunter Renfrow.
You remember that breakout Hunter Renfrow season a few years ago? We could totally see that. And then he just disappeared face of the earth. It's just the crazy. But yeah, we talk about it. And Brian Thomas Jr. actually had a breakout age. Ladd McConkey did not have a breakout age. Partially is he came off the routes and he didn't run all of the routes. He also dealt with injuries too. So that was part of it. He was better early on, and then Brian Thomas Jr. just absolutely exploded. So if I'm taking a guy with a breakout age, I'm just gonna take that over the guy that didn't break out.
Yeah, for sure. And Ladd had 4 or 5 fewer games than his teammates last year. He played just 9 games as opposed to 13 and 14 games for others. But Brock Bowers played 10 games. and had nearly twice as many receptions. But guys like Dominic Lovett and Marcus Rosemi-Jacksaint, who's getting all the love on Twitter for his one catch that was slightly above his head, now on the Commanders, excuse me. Those guys caught more balls than Ladd McConkey did last year. So yeah, the production is always a concern with him. I'm not going to be concerned about 17 touchdowns for Brian Thomas Jr., even if a few of those, more than a few of those, were completely because of Jaden Daniels scrambling around like a madman and just BTJ just running deep and blowing by his man wide open 15 yards. Easy score.
College dominator wise, we had BTJ posting an elite 32.7. I believe it was third best in the class, behind Neighbors and MHJ. McConkey put up 17.8, which is, I compared, it's typically the dominator you would get for an elite tight end. Meanwhile, Brock Bowers had the dominator you would get for an elite receiver. So basically, Bowers operated as the elite receiver and McConkey was the tight end out of the slot. So once again, I'm not a big fan here of McConkey, and this one had me a little bit higher on BTJ, really. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if Brian Thomas Jr. played with Brock Bowers, he would also be losing targets to Brock Bowers just because of how talented a player Brock Bowers is. He's just like another class of human. Like everything he do is just spectacular. So like I get it. But like we saw with Neighbors, like he didn't really touch what Neighbors was doing. He was a very benefactor of that offense being the secondary option. He did well on his own, but like Neighbors, similar to Brock Bowers, it was like, dude, I am the wide receiver one here. You cannot touch me. So I think both of these guys dealt with better players on their team. And he just carved out a bigger role. Part of that is injury, but whatever it was, but he was a more focal point down the stretch, like those particularly junior year.
Yeah. And my thoughts about what you just said, Aaron, is like, what the hell is Kirby Smart doing in Georgia? I mean, he's winning, right? But otherwise, look, featuring Brock Bowers is not a mistake. But the fact that you have kind of all of these other pieces and you're not really able to create an offense that's suited to all strengths, I think is an issue. But look, the other guys I just mentioned on that roster didn't necessarily inspire supreme confidence. Probably shouldn't have went 13-1 with that Georgia team. So, it's just college. It's going to be completely different when they come to the NFL and the pros. And, one guy had a Heisman winning quarterback and the other guy had Carson Beck.
Georgia also has an 1,000-yard receiver in like 30 years. Like it's the craziest thing of all time. Georgia they do not even like with these AJ Green types, all these players, George Pickens, doesn't matter. Neither one of them got 1,000 yards. It's mind blowing.
I would have based the offense on Brock Bowers too, and not McConkey. So here we've got, we'll end it with a landing spot in draft capital. Bowers fell from where he was expected. He went 13th to the Raiders, and McConkey went, where the hell did I have it? What do you go? First pick of the second round? Last pick of the first pick of the second round, 32, right?
Second.
Or 33.
Yeah, that was Coleman. That was Coleman.
Yeah,
so
it was one of the first few picks, yes. So draft capital, it was obviously better. Sorry. You got me stuck on Brock Bowers. I said Brock Bowers. BTJ went 23rd to the Jaguars. You fucking got me. Anyways, 23rd to the Jags versus 33rd or 34th.
He's picked 202. So, yeah, the second pick of the second round.
Yes. So, Brian Thomas Jr. wins the draft capital debate. Landing spots, I think that's going to be the closer one. Jags, Chargers, what do you guys think while I recuperate from my mini stream?
I mean, if this is the whole competition versus skill set, I think Ladd actually has a better chance to dominate in year one.
Oh yeah.
Like I believe in Brian Thomas is probably the better overall player, but I think Ladd has a chance to dominate from year one. So if you want year one production, I think it's a higher likely outcome that Ladd McConkey does it than Brian Thomas Jr. But like we talked about, their receiving yardage total are split. They're like it's even. So I think it's actually closer than people would assume between the two. Because I've seen Ladd McConkey get pushed to the 110. And realistically, I'm just going to take Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not going to take him above Ladd. But it's the same tier. It's like 109 to 202 type range player. So I personally prefer Brian Thomas Jr., but I think Ladd can have the better year one. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a better long-term bet.
Yeah, I think the concern we have is long-term. It's possible that the Chargers bring in a true X, and that guy can then dominate, right? If these two are on the same team, then you certainly have concerns about it. Right now, the Chargers have Joshua Palmer, DJ Chark, Quentin Johnston, Brendan Rice, and a bunch of other ridiculous guys with really no tight end to speak of. Hayden Hurst, Will Disley were brought in because they didn't like who they had. There's just very little target competition. And the fact that, in the running back room, you have a bunch of guys who just don't have experience catching passes. I mean, come on, this is why we love Kamani Vidal, right? Because maybe he could just be a do-it-all guy. But they got nothing back there. So it's kind of like the Malik Neighbors situation. Could Ladd McConkey, receive 130, 140 targets in year one? It's absolutely possible. And I just think that for his short-term value, we talk about these 2 to 3 year windows. The short-term value should be there for Ladd, even in a run-first offense. For BTJ, I just worry that he's, the fourth target on his team for the next year or two as he continues to develop, get used to the offense. Trevor Lawrence gets used to him. Doug Peterson figures out how to use him best. And you still got Christian Kirk. You still got Evan Ingram. You still got Travis Etienne there kind of collecting targets. And, BTJ is more of a stretch than maybe he should be.
All right, moment of truth. Brian Thomas Jr. or Ladd McConkey? Who is your pick, Jeremy, as if we didn't already know?
Ladd McConkey. Let me get I'm soaking up all the targets, baby. Let's go. Ladd McConkey on the Jim Harbaugh-led Chargers. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, that's reassuring. Jesse, your thoughts?
I was on the clock at 1:12 and I expected Brent Thomas Jr. to fall to me. He went actually above me. So I said, well, I'm going to take my boy, Jonathan Brooks, even on a rebuild. Sorry, Ladd, I'm not taking it. It's not happening. But I prefer Brian Thomas Jr. I think I'm going to, like I talk about, I always chase upside. It's risky. He has a risky profile, but if he hits, he's going to hit bigger. So, it might be a first, year or two where it struggles a little bit, but he comes along. As long as he has upward trajectory, I'm fine with it. So I'm going to take Brian Thomas Jr. playing the X along with Trevor Lawrence. I like that pairing, so I will go with it.
I agree with what you said. I am going to go with the guy who has the better upside in the end. So it's Brian Thomas Jr. 2-1. All cool. Right, everyone. Thank you. We enjoy it. Check out the full write-up for this article over at fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Stay tuned at the end of this one, and you can click on the videos that should appear on screen if you want to see the sneak peek for Brian Thomas Jr. or Ladd McConkey. Check back tomorrow for our next face-off. I'm not sure who it is yet, but follow us anywhere on social media at the FF Universe.
See, so what that just tells you is Brian Thomas Jr. no matter what. So that's all that just tells you right there.
I don't know what he had up. There was nothing.
He's like, I'm blacked out. Oh, he's back, baby.
I'm really glad I'm illiterate. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.